Today, we'll be talking about the essential ingredients of cooperative extension services and its problems. From what we have done so far, we have covered the model one in our previous session, so it's important you try to watch the live video recordings. Okay, like I said, the topic for today is the essential ingredients of cooperative extension services and its problem. So we'll be expecting that at the end of today's session, every student should be able to define extension services. Every student should be able to explain the method and attributes of cooperative extension services. Every student should be able to highlight the stages of cooperative extension services, as well as discuss the approaches to cooperative extension services. It's our expectation also that students should be able to state the economic, organizational, and structural problems of cooperative extension services. Students should be able to discuss the population factor as affecting cooperative extension services and the lack of a realistic policy or an unstable policy framework for the cooperative extension services. Now, what do we mean by cooperative extension services? Cooperative extension services can be defined as an informal out-of-school education for rural people. It is a non-formal educational program designed to help people use rich research-based knowledge to improve their lives. It is targeted at getting people to understand cooperative principles and values. Cooperative extension services refers to the services employed in the diffusion of new innovation to the people who live in the remote areas of a community. That is the definition of cooperative extension service according to UBU 2008. Now, cooperative extension services can help people use research-based knowledge to improve their lives. The research and system services are provided in Nigeria by 17 commodity-based research institutes and a special national extension institute. 2, over 45 faculties of agriculture in conventional federal, state, and private universities. 3 universities of agriculture, although it has increased now, I think. Several colleges of agriculture and polytechnics. It is also, or we can rather say, it also includes 3 international agricultural research centers, namely the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, that is IITA, a substation of International Crop Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics, and a substation of International Livestock Research Institute, and others. Now, cooperative extension organization and funding. How is cooperative extension organized and funded? Let's look at the US for an example. Extension organization is the cooperation or partnership between the national, state, provincial, and local government in funding. That they have a partnership in funding, in programming and managing the activities and resources of extension. So the Department of Agriculture, that's the Federal Extension Services, and other bodies are part of this partnership. In Japan, how does it work? Extension is a joint undertaking of the national government and the prefectural government. In China, how does it work? You see, most of them are in partnership. In China, how does it work? Agricultural extension is a cooperative undertaking of the central, provincial, prefecture, and the country governments. While in Nigeria, how does cooperative extension work? It is in collaboration. It is a collaborated effort by the various research institutes, faculties of agriculture, in conventional universities, some specialized agricultural universities, and colleges of education, as well as polytechnics, agricultural development programs, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So you can see that from the various countries that we just talked about, even in Nigeria, it is a sequence of collaboration and cooperation. What is the method of cooperative extension services? Cooperative extension services adheres to certain extension services methods, adheres to certain rules. The first rule is it seeks to understand the level of the people. It seeks to understand the level of the people by 1, understanding the perceived need of the rural people. Two, by identifying the objectives of the farmer, traders, or artisans in the cooperative by asking them. Three, you must determine the real need of the rural people. For instance, a farmer. The real need of the farmer is best considered by the extension worker. Joint effort of the extension worker and the farmer. Now, the proper methods. The methods proper. Number one, extension methods proper. One, involvement of every member of the family. You must create a project that involves every member of the family, unless the target farmer or trader will be distracted by family. Two, never give the farmer something for nothing. Always give something for something. This is to avoid dependency syndrome. Number three, always utilize local leaders. This is because they are part and parcel of the society. The people understand them easily. So utilize local leaders so that you can get the message across to the rural people easily. Number four, use the language that they understand and you have to come to their level. For example, you want to talk about fertilizers, you have to talk about it in a local dialect. So fertilizers that look like soil, not potassium permanganate, you must present it in the local dialect. You must come down to their level so that they can get the message. The next is attributes of cooperative extension services. Modern cooperative extension services have these attributes. One, knowledge to disseminate. You must have a knowledge. You must have something you want to tell the people. Two, people to be served. There must be a target or an audience. There must be a target for which extension is being carried out. Number three, there must be extension organization or agency. There must be an organization that is driving this campaign. Then four, there must be the contact man or the extension worker. Someone must spearhead the activity such that the people will say, okay, this man is leading the team. There must be a contact man. There must be an extension worker. Okay. Next is informal education is geared towards solving a particular problem in a locality and not on a laid down curriculum. So try not to be too formal. Try not to be too formal. Try to go informal. Use the informal education style. Another attribute is teaching and learning are conducted through discussions, practical demonstration, and group participation. That way, you capture the attention of the people. The next is extension agents are professionally trained in such areas as practice, extension organization, rural sociology, farm management, agricultural policy, and marketing, as well as cooperative education training. So these are the attributes of cooperative extension services. What are the stages of cooperative extension services? The stages involved are one, awareness stage. That is number one. And at this stage, what happens? You try to provide knowledge so that the farmer notices something. You provide provide a knowledge, provide something that can attract them so the farmer can notice it. That is called the awareness stage. The second stage is the interest stage. You motivate him to learn. At this stage, you try to create in the farmer the interest, the wanting to know something, the wanting to know about it or have that knowledge. Okay. Then number three is evaluation stage. You should evaluate whether the innovation you are bringing in is conducive for the farmer or for the people in the rural area to use. At this point, the people need to feel something. Number four is the trial stage. The audience should participate in the innovation at this stage. Now is the stage where the people that are being targeted do something. Number five is the adoption stage. The farmer, the target audience finally adopts the innovation at this stage or the new practice. The targets get something. Now they have to have the knowledge or adopt the learning that has been brought to them. So the next slide tells us something. You can see the stage of cooperative extension starts from awareness and ends at adoption. If it fails at any point in between, the stages of cooperative extension will not be complete. Now, we move on. Now, let's discuss the approaches to cooperative extension services in terms of policy. Here, let us consider a number of variables. The first is the provisional extension policy. This is the most common form of extension policy in most developing countries like Nigeria. In the absence of more formalized extension policies, policy should be enacted for Nigeria, as we have observed. For example, in Mozambique, in the early 80s, 1980s, they did not have a national policy for agricultural extension. When the agricultural development policy shifted from a reliance on state farms to the involvement of small family farms, a provisional extension policy was formulated to provide farmers and the cooperative sector with improved training and technology. To develop and test this provisional policy, a UNDP Food and Agricultural Organization program supported project assisted the government at that time. Now, the next approach is the decree and proclamation approach. Decree and proclamations are policies issued by heads of states or by executive officers of government. Generally, this approach does not go through the process of consultation and debate involving various stakeholders or beneficiaries. In Nigeria, for instance, the removal of the extension service from the civil service system and the introduction of the ADB was a policy decision of executive arm of the government. It's just a decree, it's just a proclamation. The next approach is the legislated extension policy approach. Extension policies embedded by the country's highest lawmaking authorities, like for example, the parliament, are common in many developing countries. Countries that have enacted extension policies through legislative action tend to have well-organized, financially stable extension systems that have sustained, effective, and cumulative impact. Example of legislated extension policies like the one established the Cooperative Extension Service in the US has been observed to be effective. Now, let's talk about economics of extension. Some of the problems. One, inadequate funding of extension programs. Public funding of extension should be stepped up. Number two, inadequacy of basic facilities for extension workers. Basic facilities like transportation facilities, essential equipment, tools needed for communication, and so on and so forth are needed in the rural area for extension programs. Number three, uncompetitiveness of the Nigerian economy, which causes a lack of motivation for the farmer. Because once the competition heats up, a lot of people get involved in farming, gets involved in cooperative, gets involved in the local economy. That way, extension kicks up. Okay, the next is staffing issues. Studies show, and this staffing issue is part of the organizational issues affecting extension, staffing issues. Studies show that the quantity and quality of staff for extension need improvement. The number of extension workers in relation to the rural people is very small. The quality of staff is also not encouraging. Another organizational issue is the weak linkage between research and extension. Extension is a weak instrument when it stands on its own, when it stands alone, but it becomes powerful when combined with research. Remember the diagram we portrayed in our first class where we showed three circles. One circle at the extreme left represented the research institute. At the middle, we have the researcher worker, and at the extreme, the target, which is the farmer and the rural populace. So if extension stands alone without a handshake with the research institute, it becomes a very weak instrument. So the lack of good relationship between extension and research is one of the major setbacks in meeting expected results. Now let's discuss some structural problems. One is poor emphasis on evaluation. Evaluation is important so as to know if the target at the initial stage is being achieved. Findings show that most extension systems lack the evaluation of the progress of the extension. And that way you can't make any correction. If you have evaluated the system and found out that something is wrong, then you make a correction. And going forward, that system gets better. The second structural problem is lack of identity. Lack of identity. There needs to the need for extension services to have its own identity based on its educational function and other related function is key. So that is a structural problem. Now we have other problems. One of the other problems we have in terms of extension is population issue. Population explosion results in the increased pressure on the land and other natural resources. Therefore, the need for extension services for increased productivity. One of the challenges of population explosion is the fact that the headers are now conflicting with farmers. Those days where the population was not that high, headers go on one part, the farmers go on another part, and they don't clash. Now we have more people to feed, more people going to the farm, more people carrying heads. They now have to clash. This is a population issue. It needs to be addressed. The next issue is unstable policy framework. The first principle to recognize is that extension is one of the most strategically important policy instruments for achieving rural development. Unfortunately, we have not been lucky with a realistic policy in extension services delivery in Nigeria. So this is an issue. Now, in conclusion, in this session, we have addressed the essential ingredients of cooperative extension services. There is need to map out sound management concepts, principles, techniques, methods for effective cooperative extension service in Nigeria. Cooperative is not just a business organization, but an association of individuals of modest means. Their meager resources must be meshed properly towards the attainment of the aims and objectives of the society. The essential ingredients of cooperative extension services have been explained, and the relevant definitions, method attributes, stages, and approaches of cooperative extension services have been discussed. Also, we have explored the problems of cooperative extension services, particularly in developing countries like Nigeria. Okay, thank you very much for today. As I look forward to seeing you in our next class, do well to go through the lecture modules. In there, you will see in-course assignments. Please attempt all those questions. That way, you will be able to evaluate yourself to know if you understood what we have just discussed. Thank you for your time, and see you in my next class. If you have learned from these videos, click the notification button. Please give it a thumbs up so that others can see it or will see it. Always remember to subscribe if you have not done so. Until next time, keep learning.